The melodies drifted through the sterile corridors like lost prayers. Hospital cleaner sings to coma patients during night shifts, unaware one would wake up and make her dreams come true. That's what the other staff whispered about Eliza Mendez, the night shift cleaner with the voice of an angel and a heart too big for her small frame. Tonight was no different. The hospital halls echoed with the squeak of her cart's wheels as she pushed it down the dimly lit corridor of the intensive care unit. 3 a.m. The witching hour, when the boundary between the living and those suspended in between seemed thinnest. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting everything in a pallid, unforgiving glow that made even the healthiest visitor look ill. "Good evening, Mrs. Rodriguez," Eliza whispered as she entered the first room on her rounds. The elderly woman lay motionless, machines tracking her life with cold precision. Eliza began her work, emptying trash bins, wiping surfaces, mopping floors, all while humming softly. When the room gleamed, she paused beside the bed. "This one's for you tonight," she said, and began to sing a gentle Spanish lullaby her grandmother had taught her. Her voice was clear and warm, filling the sterile space with something human. No one had told her to sing. It wasn't in her job description, but 5 years ago, when she'd first taken this job, the only one she could find after her life had collapsed, she'd overheard a doctor mention that coma patients might still hear things. That night, she'd spontaneously sung to an elderly patient, and something about it had loosened the knot in her chest for the first time since the accident. After finishing with Mrs. Rodriguez, Eliza moved to the next room and the next, leaving cleanliness and song in her wake. The other night, staff had grown accustomed to her ritual. Nurses would sometimes pause in their rounds, lingering outside doorways to listen. The night security guard occasionally wiped his eyes when he thought no one was looking. It was nearly 4:30 when she reached room 402. The newest patient? According to the clipboard at the door, his name was David Chen, age 34. Coma following a traumatic brain injury. 3 weeks with no change. Eliza entered quietly, noting the absence of cards or flowers. No personal items cluttered the narrow bedside table, just the standard hospital-issue water pitcher and cup. No one had been here then. The realization made her chest ache. "Hello, Mr. Chen," she greeted softly. "I'm Eliza. I'll be tidying up your room a bit." Unlike the elderly patients with their papery skin and fragile frames, David Chen looked as if he might simply be sleeping. Dark hair fell across his forehead. His face, though pale, was youthful, with strong features relaxed in unconsciousness. A fading bruise bloomed along his right temple, disappearing into his hairline. His chest rose and fell in an even rhythm, the ventilator unnecessary for him. As she worked, Eliza found herself talking more than usual. "The weather's turning cold," she said, wiping down the visitor's chair no one had used. "They say we might get snow by the weekend. First of the season." She moved to the window, closing the blinds more securely against the night. "I always loved the first snow as a kid. Everything seems so quiet, like the world is holding its breath." She finished her cleaning tasks, but found herself reluctant to leave. Perhaps it was the absence of visitors, or maybe the wedding ring on his finger with no sign of a waiting spouse. Whatever the reason, she pulled the visitor's chair closer to his bed. "I usually sing for everyone," she confessed. "Would you mind? It helps me as much as I hope it helps you." The monitors beeped steadily in response. Eliza closed her eyes and began to sing Hallelujah, the Leonard Cohen version that had been her father's favorite. Her voice, untrained but naturally rich, filled the small room. She sang with her eyes closed, not noticing the slight acceleration in the heart monitor's rhythm. When she finished, she opened her eyes and whispered, "I'll see you tomorrow night, Mr. Chen." As she stepped into the hallway, pulling her cart behind her, Nurse Jackson was standing there with a stack of fresh linens. "That was beautiful, Eliza," she said. "As always." Eliza shrugged, uncomfortable with praise. "Just keeping myself company. Well, it makes a difference around here. You know that, right?" Eliza gave a non-committal smile. "I should finish my rounds. How's your daughter doing?" Nurse Jackson asked before she could escape. "Still liking her new school?" The question landed like a stone in still water, ripples of pain spreading outward. "Sophia's good." Adjusting. She gripped the handle of her cart tighter. "The music program there is better than her old school." The nurse nodded, seeming to sense she'd touched a tender spot. "That's good. She got your voice, that one." "Her father's, actually," Eliza corrected softly. "I should get back to work." As she continued down the hallway, the weight she carried settled back onto her shoulders. 5 years since the accident that took Marco and left Sophia with scars both visible and invisible. 5 years of night shifts and daytime classes at the community college, trying to piece together a new life from the shattered remains of the old one. 5 years of singing to strangers in the dark because it was safer than facing the silence of her own thoughts. The sky was beginning to lighten by the time Eliza clocked out at 6 a.m. She wrapped her threadbare coat tighter around herself as she walked to the bus stop, the cold air biting at her cheeks. The early morning bus was nearly empty, just her and a few other night shift workers heading home while the rest of the world was waking up. Her apartment was in a modest complex on the east side of town, not the worst neighborhood but far from the best. She let herself in quietly, knowing Mrs. Patel next door would already be watching Sophia. The older woman had been a godsend these past few years, watching Sophia overnight during Eliza's shifts in exchange for Eliza helping with Mrs. Patel's medical appointments and grocery shopping. "Mama!" Sophia's voice greeted her as she closed the door. At 10 years old, she was all gangly limbs and bright eyes, her school uniform already on, her dark hair braided neatly. Mrs. Patel's handiwork. Eliza embraced her daughter, breathing in the scent of the strawberry shampoo they'd splurged on last week. "Good morning, mi corazón. All ready for school?" Sophia nodded, then turned to show off her neck. "Look, Mrs. Patel says it's healing really good." Eliza examined the scar that ran along the right side of her daughter's neck, now a pale pink line instead of the angry red it had been for so long. "It looks wonderful," she agreed, swallowing the familiar surge of guilt. If she hadn't been arguing with Marco while he drove. "Did you sing to the sleeping people again last night?" Sophia asked, her eyes bright with interest as she gathered her backpack. "I did," Eliza said, moving to the kitchen to prepare Sophia's lunch. "Peanut butter sandwich, apple, and the last of the yogurt cups. Do you think they can hear you?" "I hope so, Majida. Maybe they're having nice dreams because of your songs," Sophia suggested with the simple certainty of childhood, "like when you used to sing me to sleep after..." The words hung in the air between them. After the accident, after everything changed. "Maybe," Eliza agreed, forcing brightness into her voice. "Now eat your breakfast. Mrs. Patel already left? She said to tell you she put a plate in the microwave for you." Sophia pointed to the kitchen. "Are you coming to my concert next month?" "Ms. Reynolds says I get to sing a solo." Eliza's heart clenched. The winter concert was always scheduled for early evening, right when her shift began. "I'm going to try, baby. I promise I'll try." Sophia's face fell slightly, but she nodded with the resignation of a child who had learned early that adult promises were fragile things. "It's okay if you can't." But it wasn't okay. None of it was okay. Eliza watched her daughter eat breakfast, chattering about school and friends, and felt the familiar ache of failing her in all the ways that mattered. After walking Sophia to the school bus stop, Eliza returned to the apartment and ate the eggs Mrs. Patel had left her. She should sleep, she knew that, but instead she pulled out her textbooks. Another semester of nursing prerequisites, another step on the long journey toward a better life. If she could just become a nurse, they could have health insurance, regular hours, maybe even move to a better apartment. 3 hours later, her eyes burning from fatigue, Eliza finally crawled into bed. As she drifted off, her thoughts returned to room 402. To David Chen, alone in the hospital with no one to miss him. She wondered about his story, who he was, who loved him, what dreams lay dormant while he slept. It became a pattern over the following weeks. Eliza saved room 402 for last on her rounds, spending a little more time there each night. She sang different songs to David, everything from old Spanish ballads to pop songs Sophia liked. Sometimes she'd tell him about her day, about Sophia's upcoming concert, about her struggles with anatomy class. "I don't know why I'm telling you all this," she confessed one night in early December after singing Silent Night as snow fell outside the window. "Maybe because you're a good listener." She smiled at her own joke. "Or maybe because it's easier to talk to someone who can't answer back." She'd brought a small bottle of lotion from home, nothing fancy, just something with aloe vera, and had taken to moisturizing his hands while she sang. The nurses didn't mind. They were understaffed and overworked, and many of these small comforts for long-term patients fell by the wayside. "Your hands are a musician's hands," she noted, massaging the lotion into his long fingers. "Do you play something? Piano, maybe?" She studied his face, the straight nose, the slightly stubborn set of his jaw even in unconsciousness. "I bet you do. You have that look about you." December progressed, and the hospital took on a festive air despite itself. Tinsel appeared at the nurses' station. A small tree stood in the lobby. Even the cafeteria made an effort with red and green Jell-O cups. Eliza added Christmas carols to her repertoire for the patients. When she entered David's room on December 20th, she was surprised to find a small poinsettia on the windowsill. "You had a visitor," she told him, touching one of the bright red leaves. "That's good." As she cleaned, she told him about Sophia's concert the next evening. "Her solo is Ave Maria. She's so nervous, but she has the most beautiful voice. She didn't get that from me, that was all her father." Eliza paused in wiping down the bedside table. "I'm going to miss it. I tried to switch shifts, but Jenkins is visiting his mother in Florida, and Teresa's baby is sick." The admission hurt, speaking it aloud, making it more real. "I've missed so many things already. Her first day at the new school. Her science fair project last spring." Eliza's voice broke. "I'm trying so hard, but sometimes I think I'm failing her completely." She set down her cleaning cloth and sank into the visitor's chair, suddenly exhausted beyond measure. "I'm sorry. You don't need my problems." After a moment, she stood and finished her work in silence. When the room was clean, she returned to his bedside. "I should sing something happier tonight, shouldn't I? It's almost Christmas after all." She began, "Have yourself a merry little Christmas," her voice catching on the lines about faithful friends gathering near. When she finished, she wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "Merry Christmas, David," she said, using his first name for the first time. "I hope wherever part of you is still listening, you can feel that someone cares." The next evening, Eliza's steps were heavy as she arrived at the hospital. The concert would be starting in 30 minutes. Sophia had been so brave that morning, telling Eliza it was okay she couldn't come, that Mrs. Patel would record it on her phone. But the resignation in her eyes had been almost unbearable. "You look like you lost your best friend," Nurse Jackson commented as Eliza clocked in. "Sophia has her winter concert tonight." "A solo." Understanding dawned on the nurse's face. "Oh, honey. And you couldn't get anyone to cover?" Eliza shook her head, blinking back tears. "It's fine. It's just one concert. One concert too many to miss," Jackson said firmly. "Look, I'm not supposed to do this, but go." "What?" "Go to the concert. I'll cover for you for 2 hours. Tell Rodriguez you had car trouble or something and will be late. I'll make sure your patients' rooms get a quick clean." Eliza stared at her. "You'd do that? For Sophia's solo?" "Absolutely. Now get out of here before I change my mind." It felt like a dream as Eliza raced back to the bus stop, rode across town, and slipped into the elementary school auditorium just as the lights were dimming. She found Mrs. Patel easily, the older woman's face lighting up with surprise and joy. "You came," she whispered. "I couldn't miss it," Eliza whispered back, her eyes scanning the risers for Sophia. When Sophia stepped forward for her solo, her dark hair shining under the stage lights, Eliza's heart swelled. Her daughter's voice, clear and pure, filled the auditorium. There was Marco in every note, his musical talent living on in their child. Tears streamed down Eliza's face as she listened. She had made so many mistakes, failed in so many ways, but this, being present for this moment, felt like one small thing done right. After the concert, Sophia's face when she spotted Eliza in the crowd was worth everything. She flew into her mother's arms, vibrating with excitement. "You came! You really came!" "Of course I did, mi corazón. I wouldn't miss my star for anything." The joy of that moment carried Eliza through her rushed return to the hospital, where she arrived red-faced and breathless at her cart. "Thank you," she told Nurse Jackson fervently. "I can never repay you. Was it worth it?" "Every second. Then we're even," Jackson smiled. "By the way, there's been some activity with our friend in 402. Nothing major, but his EEG showed increased activity today. Dr. Miller is cautiously optimistic." The news about David stayed with Eliza as she began her delayed rounds. When she finally reached his room near the end of her shift, she studied his face more intently, looking for any sign of change. There was none she could detect. The same peaceful expression, the same steady breathing. "I went to Sophia's concert tonight," she told him as she worked. "It was beautiful. She was beautiful." She hummed Ave Maria as she cleaned, reliving the moment. When she finished, she sat in her usual spot and took his hand. "I wish you could have heard her. I think about you sometimes, David, when I'm not here. I wonder if you have children, if there's someone out there missing you the way my Sophia would miss me." She began to sing Sophia's solo, the Latin words flowing as they had hours earlier from her daughter's lips. As she reached the crescendo, her eyes closed in emotion. She felt it, the slightest pressure against her fingers. Eliza's eyes flew open. Had she imagined it? "David," she whispered, His face remained impassive, but as she watched, his eyelids seemed to flutter slightly. Eliza hit the call button, her heart racing. Nurse Jackson appeared moments later. "I think he squeezed my hand," Eliza said breathlessly, and his eyelids moved. Jackson approached the bed, checking monitors and shining a pen light into David's eyes. "Pupillary response is stronger than yesterday," she noted. "I'll page Dr. Miller. This could be significant. Is he waking up?" "Too soon to tell, but these are good signs. You should finish your shift, Eliza. We'll keep an eye on him." Eliza nodded, reluctantly gathering her cleaning supplies. At the door, she turned back. "You'll let me know if anything changes?" "Of course," Jackson promised. For the next 3 nights, Eliza arrived at work buzzing with anticipation, only to learn that while David's neurological activity continued to increase, he remained unconscious. She sang to him with renewed purpose, convinced somehow that her voice was helping to guide him back. On Christmas Eve, the hospital was quieter than usual. Many patients who could be home for the holiday had been discharged. Those who remained received extra attention from the reduced staff, most wearing Santa hats or reindeer antlers with their scrubs. Eliza wore a simple red sweater with her uniform, a small concession to the season. She had promised Sophia they would open 1 gift each before she left for work, and the memory of her daughter's delight at the new art set warmed her as she made her rounds. When she reached room 402, she was surprised to find the door slightly ajar and voices coming from inside. Hesitating, she knocked softly. A woman about Eliza's age turned from beside the bed. She had David's same dark hair and similar features, though hers were softer, more rounded. "I'm sorry," Eliza said. "I can come back later." "No, please," the woman said. "I was just leaving. Are you his nurse?" "I'm just the cleaner," Eliza explained, wheeling her card in. "I'm Eliza, Julie Chen, David's sister." She gathered her coat from the visitor's chair. "They called me a few days ago about the changes in his brain activity. I've been traveling for work, couldn't get here sooner." Her eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion and worry. "It's good that you're here now," Eliza said, noting the fresh flowers and the family photo that now sat on the bedside table. "He needs family," Julie smiled sadly. "It's just me, really. Our parents died years ago, and David's wife." She glanced at her brother's face. "Well, that's a complicated story. I should let you work." As Julie moved toward the door, Eliza found herself asking, "Does he play piano? I've always thought he had a musician's hands." Julie paused, surprise crossing her face. "Yes, actually. He's a composer. Or was before." She gestured helplessly at the bed. "What kind of music?" "Film scores, mostly. He was just starting to get noticed when the accident happened." Julie's eyes filled with tears. "The doctors don't know if he'll ever—" She couldn't finish the sentence. Eliza moved closer, compelled by the woman's pain. "I believe he can hear us," she said softly. "I talk to him every night. Sometimes I sing." "You sing to him?" Eliza nodded, suddenly self-conscious. "To all the patients. It helps pass the time." A strange expression crossed Julie's face. The night nurse mentioned someone singing. She thought it might be contributing to his increased brain activity. She studied Eliza with new interest. Would you sing something now? I'd like to hear." "Put on the spot," Eliza hesitated. Then, looking at David's still face, she nodded. "What would he like?" "He always loved Leonard Cohen." Eliza smiled at the coincidence. "So do I." She began Hallelujah, softly, her voice gaining strength as the familiar melody took hold. Julie sat back down, her eyes moving between her brother's face and Eliza's. When Eliza finished, the room felt charged with something indefinable. "That was beautiful," Julie said, wiping her eyes. "Truly beautiful. Just an old favorite." Eliza demurred, turning back to her cart. "Would it be all right if I stayed while you clean? I'd like to hear more about these conversations you've been having with my brother." As Eliza worked, she told Julie about her nightly visits, carefully editing out the more personal confessions she'd made to the unconscious man. Julie listened intently, occasionally adding details about David's life, how he'd been driving home from a late-night recording session when a drunk driver hit him, how he'd been working on a major film score that might have been his big break, how his wife had left 6 months before the accident, unable to handle the financial instability of his career. "He sounds like someone who follows his dreams," Eliza said, thinking of her own deferred hopes. "To a fault sometimes," Julie agreed. "But that's who he is, all in, heart first." She checked her watch reluctantly. "I should go. My hotel is across town, and I promised the night nurse I wouldn't stay past 10. Will you be back tomorrow?" "It's Christmas." "Of course. I'll be here until there's a significant change, one way or another. Julie gathered her things. Thank you, Eliza, for talking to him all these weeks. For singing, it means more than you know. After Julie left, Eliza found herself studying the family photo now displayed beside David's bed. It showed him with his arm around Julie, both laughing at something off camera. He had a brilliant smile, she noticed, and kind eyes. Your sister seems wonderful, she told him as she sang Silent Night before leaving. I hope you can hear her. I hope you know she's here. Christmas Day brought a rare schedule change. Eliza worked a shorter shift, starting at 10 p.m., so she could spend most of the day with Sophia. They had a small celebration at home, then joined Mrs. Patel for dinner. By the time Eliza arrived at the hospital, she was tired but content, the simple joy of the day a balm to her usually weary spirit. Julie was still there when Eliza reached room 402, though visiting hours had technically ended. The nurses are letting me stay a bit longer, she explained. Christmas privilege. Eliza nodded, beginning her usual routine. Any changes today? Dr. Miller says his brain activity continues to increase, especially in response to voices and music. Julie watched as Eliza efficiently moved around the room. I played some of his own compositions for him today. I thought it might help. That's a wonderful idea. Would you like to hear one? Julie held up her phone. I have them all. Eliza paused, then nodded. I'd love that. Julie pressed play, and the room filled with a haunting piano melody, joined gradually by strings. It was beautiful, melancholy yet hopeful, complex without being unapproachable. This is incredible, Eliza said, genuinely moved. It's from a small independent film about a woman rebuilding her life after loss, Julie explained. It was his most personal work. The director is still holding the final cut, hoping David will recover to complete the score. The music washed over them both as Eliza finished her cleaning. When it ended, the silence felt heavier somehow. I should let you have your time with him, Julie said, rising. I know you usually sing. You don't have to leave. It's late, and I think he responds differently to you. Julie squeezed her brother's hand. The nurse showed me his monitoring data. There's a clear pattern of increased activity during your visits. After Julie left, Eliza sat in her usual spot beside David. Your music is beautiful, she told him. I can feel how much of yourself you put into it. She sang Amazing Grace. That night, her voice filling the small room as snow began to fall outside the window, coating the city in a layer of pristine white. As December gave way to January, a strange routine developed. Julie would often be there when Eliza arrived, and they would exchange updates. Julie sharing any medical developments, Eliza reporting on which songs had seemed to elicit the strongest reactions the night before. The nurses think I'm crazy, Julie confided one evening, but I'm sure he responds more to your voice than anything else. I'm sure it's just that I'm here consistently, Eliza said, unwilling to take credit for what might be natural healing. Despite her modesty, she found herself looking forward to her time in room 402 more than ever. She began bringing in books to read aloud when she ran out of songs, poetry collections and short stories she thought David might enjoy, based on what Julie had told her about him. One night in mid-January, she arrived to find Julie looking more animated than usual. He opened his eyes today, she announced without preamble. Just for a few seconds, but Dr. Miller said it was purposeful, not just a reflex. Eliza's heart leapt. That's wonderful. They're saying this could be the beginning of full consciousness. It might take days or weeks, but Julie's voice broke. He's coming back, Eliza. I know he is. That night, Eliza sang with renewed purpose, watching David's face intently for any sign of awareness. There was none she could detect, but knowing he had opened his eyes earlier filled her with hope. Keep fighting, David, she whispered before leaving. There's so much waiting for you. The pattern of progress continued, small, incremental signs that David was emerging from the depths of his coma, brief eye openings, finger movements. Once, what Dr. Miller thought might have been an attempt to form words, though no sound emerged. Through it all, Eliza kept singing, kept reading, kept talking to him about her day, about Sophia, about her dreams of becoming a nurse. It became the most meaningful part of her nights, this one-sided relationship with a man suspended between worlds. January turned to February. Sophia's birthday approached. She would be 11, and with it, the anniversary of the accident that had taken Marco. The convergence of dates had always been cruel, a celebration immediately followed by grief. I don't know how to make it better for her, Eliza confessed to David one night after reading a chapter from The Little Prince. How do you celebrate when the very next day marks such loss? She hadn't expected an answer, of course, but as she sat there, she thought she saw his eyelids flutter. "David?" she whispered, leaning closer. His eyes opened slowly, unfocused at first, then gradually sharpening. They were brown, a warm, deep brown she hadn't known until this moment. "David," she repeated, her heart racing. She reached for the call button. His lips moved, forming what might have been a word, though no sound came out. "Don't try to talk," she told him. "I'm calling the nurse." His hand moved then, fingers weakly grasping at the blanket. Eliza instinctively placed her hand in his, and his fingers curled around hers with surprising strength. Nurse Peterson rushed in moments later, immediately checking David's vitals and pupillary response. "I'll page Dr. Miller," she said, her voice carefully controlled. "This is significant. Should I call his sister?" Eliza asked. "Let's let the doctor assess him first." What followed was a flurry of activity, Dr. Miller arriving, Julie being called despite the late hour, tests being ordered. Through it all, David's eyes remained open, tracking movement, showing clear signs of awareness, though he still couldn't speak. Eliza was ushered out during the examination, left to wait in the hallway with her cleaning cart, her mind racing. He had looked at her, actually seen her. After all these weeks of one-sided conversations, the connection had suddenly become real in a way she hadn't been prepared for. Julie arrived breathless, having taken a taxi from her hotel. "Is it true?" she asked Eliza before rushing into the room. An hour passed before Julie emerged, her face tear-streaked but radiant. "He's really awake," she confirmed. "He can't talk yet. They said that might take time, but he's responding to questions by blinking. He knows who he is, who I am." Her voice broke. "It's really him, Eliza. He's back." "That's wonderful," Eliza said, genuine joy mixing with a strange sense of loss. Her time with David, the singing, the reading, the one-sided confidences, would come to an end now. "Dr. Miller mentioned you?" Julie continued. "Said you should come in, that David was trying to communicate something when they mentioned the night cleaner who sings." "Me? I don't want to intrude on your time with him." "Please," Julie insisted, taking her hand. "I think it would mean a lot to him, to both of us." Reluctantly, Eliza followed Julie back into the room. David lay propped up slightly, his eyes alert despite obvious exhaustion. Dr. Miller stood at the foot of the bed, making notes on a tablet. "Ah, Eliza," the doctor greeted her. "Perfect timing. I was just explaining to Mr. Chen about your regular visits during his coma." Eliza hung back, suddenly self-conscious. "I should finish my rounds." "Nonsense," Dr. Miller said. "This is important for his recovery, connecting the memories that may have formed during his unconscious state with real people now that he's awake." David's eyes found her, and Eliza felt the weight of his gaze. Intelligent, searching, and somehow familiar despite being new. "Hello, David," she said softly. "It's good to finally meet you. Properly, I mean." His lips moved, forming what she thought might be hello, though no sound emerged. "Mr. Chen has significant muscle atrophy from his time unconscious," Dr. Miller explained. "Speaking, along with other motor functions, will require therapy, but his cognitive functions appear remarkably intact." David's hand moved on the blanket, his fingers twitching in what seemed like purposeful movement. "I think he wants to write something," Julie suggested, looking around for paper. Dr. Miller produced a small whiteboard and marker from a cabinet. "We use this for patients with intubation. Much easier than paper." He handed it to David, who grasped the marker awkwardly, his hand trembling with the effort. Slowly, painstakingly, he wrote 3 words. "Sing for me?" Eliza's breath caught. Julie looked from the board to her expectantly. Here? Now?" David nodded, his eyes never leaving her face. "Just a verse or 2, Dr. Miller encouraged. "Then Mr. Chen needs to rest." Feeling strangely vulnerable under David's conscious gaze, Eliza began to sing Hallelujah, softly. The same song she'd sung to him that first night, and many nights since. His eyes remained fixed on her face, bright with what might have been recognition. When she finished, his hand moved again on the whiteboard. Erasing the previous message with a shaky motion, he wrote 1 word, beautiful. "I should let you rest," Eliza said, backing toward the door. "I'm so glad you're awake, David." As she turned to leave, she heard the marker squeaking again. Julie made a small sound of surprise that made Eliza turn back. On the whiteboard, in trembling letters, David had written, "Sophia's concert?" Eliza froze. You remember that?" He nodded, his eyes intense despite his physical weakness. I heard everything, he managed to write, the effort clearly exhausting him. Dr. Miller stepped forward. That's enough for tonight. Mr. Chen needs rest, and we don't want to overtax him so soon after regaining consciousness. In the hallway, Julie grabbed Eliza's arm. He remembers your daughter's name. He remembers specific things you told him while he was in the coma. Apparently so, Eliza said, still processing the implications. Do you know what this means? Not just for David, but for coma research in general? Dr. Miller is beside himself. Julie's eyes shone with excitement and tears. You reached him, Eliza. When nothing else could, your voice found him in the dark. Over the following weeks, David's recovery progressed with remarkable speed. His ability to speak returned gradually, his voice hoarse and halting at first, then steadily stronger. Physical therapy helped him regain basic motor functions, though he still required a wheelchair for longer distances. Eliza continued her nightly rounds, but room 402 was different now. Sometimes David would be asleep when she arrived. Normal sleep, not the profound unconsciousness of before. Other times he would be awake, waiting for her with a smile that transformed his serious face. Their conversations evolved from the halting exchanges of those first nights into something deeper. David remembered virtually everything she had told him during his coma, about Sophia, about her struggle to balance work and school, about her dreams of becoming a nurse. It wasn't like normal hearing, he explained one night, his voice still slightly rough around the edges, more like listening through water. Some things came through clearly, others were just impressions. But your voice was always the clearest, like a light in the darkness. I still can't believe you heard me, Eliza said, straightening his already tidy room out of habit. Believe it, he said simply. You gave me something to follow back. As February progressed, David began working with a speech therapist and a physical therapist daily. Julie returned to her job in Seattle, flying back on weekends. During her absence, Eliza found herself spending more of her breaks in room 402, bringing David books or simply talking with him. She learned about his life before the accident, his passion for composition, his struggle to break into the competitive world of film scoring, his divorce from a wife who hadn't believed in his talent. She wanted me to take a real job, he explained without bitterness. Can't blame her, really. Stability matters. So does following your heart, Eliza countered. You're too talented to give up on your music. He smiled at that, a smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes. Says the woman juggling night shifts and nursing school to follow her own dream. Their friendship deepened with each passing night. David began asking to hear Eliza sing, claiming it helped his recovery, though she suspected he was simply being kind. Sometimes she would bring in printed lyrics to songs she thought he might like, and they would talk about music, about films, about books, conversations that stretched far beyond her scheduled cleaning time. You'll get in trouble for spending so much time in here, he warned one night when she'd stayed nearly an hour past her break. Probably, she agreed, making no move to leave. Worth it, though. His eyes softened. I think that might be the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me. February gave way to March. David continued to improve, now able to take short walks with assistance. Dr. Miller began talking about discharge planning, rehabilitation facilities, outpatient therapy. One night, Eliza arrived to find David sitting in a chair by the window instead of in bed, looking out at the city lights. Progress, she noted with approval, wheeling her cart in. I walked all the way to the nurse's station and back today, he said proudly. Physical therapist says I'm exceeding expectations. That's wonderful, David. He turned from the window, his expression suddenly serious. I got a call from Paramount today. The film studio? Eliza paused in her work. They want to move forward with the score I was working on before the accident. The director has been holding production, waiting for me. His voice held wonder and disbelief. They're willing to give me time to recover, work remotely at first. It's the opportunity I've been waiting for my whole career. David, that's amazing! Eliza moved closer, genuinely delighted for him. I'm so happy for you. You deserve this. There's more, he said, his eyes never leaving her face. They're based in Los Angeles. I'd have to relocate once I'm well enough. Oh, the single syllable felt inadequate to express the sudden hollowness in her chest. That makes sense. For your career, Eliza, he began, but was interrupted by Nurse Peterson entering with his evening medication. Sorry to interrupt, the nurse said, though her curious glance between them suggested she wasn't sorry at all. Hospital gossip had inevitably noted the night cleaner's extended visits to room 402. I should finish my rounds. Eliza said quickly, gathering her supplies. Congratulations again, David. It's really wonderful news. She fled before he could respond, her emotions a tangled mess she couldn't begin to unravel. Of course he would leave. Of course his life would move forward. What had she expected? For the next few nights, Eliza adjusted her routine, arriving at room 402 when she knew David would likely be sleeping or with his physical therapist. She left the room spotless but didn't linger, didn't sing. The distance felt necessary, a preemptive defense against the inevitable goodbye. 4 nights after David's announcement, Eliza was nearly finished with her shift when Nurse Jackson cornered her near the supply closet. "You're avoiding him," she said without preamble. "I'm doing my job," Eliza countered, focusing on restocking her cart. "He asked about you." 3 nights in a row. Eliza's hands stilled momentarily before resuming their task. "He's being discharged soon." "That's good news." Jackson leaned against the wall, studying her. "You know, I've watched you for 5 years, Eliza, singing to patients who never say thank you, working nights so your daughter can have a better school, taking classes when you should be sleeping. Always giving, never taking. Is there a point to this? Just that maybe, just once, you could let yourself have something good. Something just for you." Eliza closed the supply cabinet with more force than necessary. "He's moving to Los Angeles. His whole life is waiting for him there. Has it occurred to you that maybe he's waiting to hear what you want before he makes any final decisions?" Before Eliza could respond, Jackson's pager beeped. "That's room 402, she said, checking the display. "Seems Mr. Chen is requesting your presence, rather urgently according to the night aide." Reluctantly, Eliza made her way to David's room. She found him sitting up in bed, looking more alert than she'd expected at 5 in the morning. "You rang?" she asked from the doorway, aiming for lightness. "You've been avoiding me." "No pretense, then." She stepped into the room. "I've been busy. End of semester exams coming up." Eliza. Just her name, but filled with a quiet certainty that broke through her defenses. "Please talk to me." She moved closer, perching on the edge of the visitor's chair. "There's nothing to talk about. You're getting better. You're moving to LA for an amazing opportunity. It's all good news." "Is it?" he asked softly. "Of course it is," she insisted. "It's what you've worked for." David studied her for a long moment. "Did I ever tell you what I remember most clearly from the coma? More than anything else?" She shook her head. "Your voice singing Hallelujah that first night, and you talking about Sophia's concert. How guilty you felt for missing it, how much you wanted to be there for her." His eyes held hers. "I wanted to wake up right then, just to tell you it would be okay, that you were already doing so much more than most people ever could." Eliza's throat tightened with unexpected emotion. "You sang me back to life, Eliza," he continued. "Not just with your voice, but with your story, your strength, your heart." He reached for her hand and she let him take it. "I'm not the same person I was before the accident. How could I be? The man who woke up is someone who knows what matters now." "And what matters?" she asked, barely above a whisper. "Connection, purpose, love." His fingers tightened around hers. "I don't want to go to LA without knowing if there could be something here, something real, between us." The confession hung in the air between them, honest and vulnerable. "David, we barely know each other," she protested weakly. He smiled at that, the special smile that reached his eyes. "Don't we? You shared your deepest fears, your greatest hopes with me for months, and somehow I heard them. I know you, Eliza. Maybe better than anyone ever has. But your career can be built anywhere. Paramount wants my music, not my physical presence in a studio. Technology makes remote work possible." He tugged gently on her hand until she met his eyes again. "The question is, do you feel anything for me? Beyond friendship, beyond the connection of those nights when I couldn't respond?" Eliza took a deep breath, allowing herself to acknowledge what she'd been trying so hard to ignore. "Yes," she admitted softly. "I do." His face lit with a joy that transformed him. "Then that's all that matters. The rest, distance, logistics, timing, we can figure out together. It won't be simple," she warned, even as hope bloomed in her chest. "The best things rarely are." He brought her hand to his lips, pressing a gentle kiss to her knuckles. "Sing for me? One more time before sunrise?" And there in the quiet pre-dawn, Eliza sang Hallelujah once more, not to an unconscious stranger, but to a man whose eyes never left her face, whose smile spoke of beginnings rather than endings. 2 months later, Sophia's birthday dawned bright and clear. Eliza woke early to prepare a special breakfast, her heart lighter than it had been on this date in years. The apartment smelled of cinnamon and coffee as Sophia emerged from her bedroom, still in pajamas, her hair tousled from sleep. "Happy birthday, mi corazón." Eliza greeted her, setting a plate of cinnamon French toast, Sophia's favorite, on the table. "Thanks, Mama," Sophia said, yawning as she sat down. "Are we still going to the park later?" "Absolutely. And then dinner at that Italian place you love." Eliza poured herself coffee, watching her daughter tuck into breakfast. "I have something for you first, though." She retrieved a small box from the top shelf of the kitchen cabinet, wrapped in silver paper with a blue bow. Sophia's eyes lit up. "Can I open it now?" "That's why I'm giving it to you," Eliza teased. Sophia tore into the wrapping, revealing a velvet jewelry box. Inside was a delicate silver pendant, a musical note suspended in a circle. "It's beautiful," Sophia breathed, lifting it carefully from the box. "Turn it over," Eliza instructed. On the back was engraved, "Your voice lights the darkness. Love, Mama." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "I love it," she whispered, immediately putting it on. "Will you help me with the clasp?" As Eliza fastened the necklace, a knock sounded at the door. "That's probably Mrs. Patel with her famous birthday cookies," Eliza said, moving to answer it. But when she opened the door, it was David who stood there, leaning slightly on his cane, a large gift bag in his free hand. "Am I too early?" he asked, glancing at his watch. "I wanted to be here for breakfast." "You're right on time," Eliza assured him, standing on tiptoe to kiss his cheek before letting him in. In the 2 months since David's discharge from the hospital, he had become a regular presence in their lives. He had rented an apartment not far from theirs, where he worked on his film score during the day. 3 times a week he joined them for dinner. Weekends often found all 3 of them at the park or a museum or a movie. Sophia had been cautious at first, the memory of her father still sacred, the idea of another man in their lives unfamiliar. But David had approached their relationship with patience and genuine interest, never trying to replace Marco but simply offering his own kind of friendship. His music had been the first bridge between them, Sophia's inherent talent recognizing and responding to his expertise. "David!" Sophia exclaimed now, rushing to greet him. "Look what Mama gave me." She displayed her new necklace proudly. "It's beautiful," he agreed, setting down his gift bag to examine the pendant. "A perfect choice for our songbird." Sophia beamed at the nickname he'd given her after hearing her sing. "I brought something for the birthday girl, too," he said, retrieving the bag. "If it's okay with your mom." Eliza nodded her permission, watching as Sophia eagerly investigated the gift. Inside was a sleek electronic keyboard, compact but professional looking. "It's a MIDI controller," David explained as Sophia's eyes widened. "It connects to software on a computer so you can compose and record your own music. I thought maybe we could work on some songs together." Sophia launched herself at him in a hug that nearly toppled him despite his cane. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Over Sophia's head, David's eyes met Eliza's, and the love she saw there made her heart swell. Whatever this was between them, this unexpected second chance that had begun in the darkest hours of night, it felt more right than anything had in years. Later, after a day of celebration that left Sophia happily exhausted and full of birthday cake, Eliza and David sat on the small balcony of her apartment, sharing a bottle of wine under the stars. "She loved the keyboard," Eliza said, leaning her head against his shoulder. "You've created a monster, you know. She'll be composing at all hours now." "Like mother, like daughter," he teased. "Night owls, both of you." She smiled, thinking of how much had changed in just a few months. She still worked nights at the hospital, but was now taking daytime nursing classes full-time thanks to a scholarship program Dr. Miller had recommended. David's score for the Paramount film was nearly complete, already generating buzz in industry circles. And Sophia was thriving, her confidence growing daily, her music a constant soundtrack to their lives. "What are you thinking about?" David asked, his arm warm around her shoulders. "Everything. How different things are from last year." She turned to look at him. "How close I came to never meeting you. But you did meet me," he reminded her. "You sang to me in the dark. And you heard me. I'll always hear you," he promised, kissing her softly. "Even when you think no one is listening." As the stars shone overhead and the city hummed around them, Eliza leaned into the embrace of the man who had awakened to her voice, the hospital cleaner who sang to coma patients during night shifts, unaware one would wake up and make her dreams come true.